me a moment as it does load up. Once it gets loaded up, and then we're going to come back and get it in. I pray you all had a great week. Everybody's feeling good and healthy and good and strong. Very serious time we're in. And then we're going to come back. And we got a lot going on. So this is a really important time for us to be eyes open, head on a swivel, spirit strong. We are in some very serious times. Well, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get on these negative commandments. We finished the positive commandments last week. Now we're on the 365 negative commandments. So let's correlate this real quick, right? There are 248 positive commandments, which correspond to the 248 bones in our body, if I'm not mistaken. And then there's 365 negative commandments, which responds to our sinews. You want the guide for the perplexed? Let me put this in the chat here. You can access this as well. And I'll pull up the guide for the perplexed right quick with the table of contents. This is the book here and the chat as well. Boom, bam, bam, there you go. All right, I'm gonna close this out. We don't need that. But let's go ahead and get into this here. So let's go over the first 20 verses. It reads as follows. The first mitzvah of the negative commandments is not to consider the thought that there is another divinity aside from Elohim. As Exodus 23 states, you shall have no other Elohim before me. Not to make an idol, not to make one oneself, or have one made for oneself by others. As Exodus 20 verse 4 states, do not make an idol for yourselves. Not to make false Elohim even for others, as Leviticus 19:4 states, do not make molten Elohim for yourselves. Not to make images for decoration, even when one does not worship them, as Exodus 20:20 states, do not make a representation of anything that is with me. Not to bow down to false Elohim, even though they are not generally worshipped by bowing down before them, as Exodus 20 verse 5 states, do not bow down to them. Not to worship false Elohim with the types of service with which it is customary to worship them, as Exodus 20 verse 4 states, do not serve them. Not to offer one's sons to Molech, as Leviticus 18:21 states, do not give any of your children to offer to Molech. Not to perform the deeds associated with and of, as Leviticus 19:31 states, do not turn to the Ovot. We'll come up and deal with that. Not to perform the deeds associated with Idoni, as Leviticus 19:31 states, do not turn to the Idonim. Not to take interest in the worship of false Elohim, as Leviticus 19:4 states, do not turn to false Elohim. Not to erect a pillar for purposes of worship, as Deuteronomy 16:22 states, do not erect a pillar for yourselves. Not to make hewn stones upon which to prostrate oneself, as Leviticus 26:1 states, you shall not place hewn stones. Not to plant a tree on the temple premises, as Deuteronomy 16:21 states, do not plant an Asherah or any other tree. Not to take an oath on a false Elohim, as requested by one of its worshipers, nor to have one of them to take an oath on their false Elohim, as Exodus 23:13 states, in the name of other Elohim you shall not mention, nor should it be heard from your mouth. Not to act as a missionary, a Mashiyach, to persuade the Yehudim to worship false Elohim, as Exodus 23:13 states, in the name of other Elohim shall not be heard from your mouth. Our sages taught that this is the prohibition against acting as a missionary for the worship of false Elohim. Not to act as a missionary, a Masit, to persuade an individual Yahudi to worship false Elohim, as Deuteronomy 13:12 states, with regard to such missionaries, and they shall not continue to do so. Not to show affection for the Masit, as Deuteronomy 13:9 states, do not show appreciation for him. Not to reduce one's hatred for a Masit, as Deuteronomy 13:9 states, do not listen to him. Not to try to save a Mesite, but rather to see to it that he is executed. As Deuteronomy 13:9 states, do not have mercy upon him. And 20, for the person whom a Mesite tried to convince not to advance any argument on behalf of the Mesite, as Deuteronomy 13:9 states, do not have pity upon him. Selah. And so these are the commandments that teach us the fear of Elohim. The positive commandments teach us how to love Elohim. You shall do. So that is how we love Elohim. Love motivates us to do what Yah commands us to do. Fear of Yah, the fear of Yah, teaches us how to do what Yah commands us to not do. And you cannot have the love of Elohim without the fear of Elohim. That is the entirety of our worship. 248 positive commandments, you shall. 365 negative commandments, you shall not. And so this is all prohibitions against idolatry. And it's so important to understand, and I've been listening to some teachings recently from this book. It's an audio book. Actually, no, it's about some teachings on Kabbalat. And it is heresy. It is an apostasy, and it is even blasphemous to recognize that any other power besides Yah exists. This is what the first commandment really is instructing us, having no other Elohim before Elohim, because there is no El before Yah. There is nothing really even next to Yah. We confess, as we read in Kabbalat Shabbat, how let's go here. The Aleinu prayer says here, right, in two places, in the first stanza, right? So we bow, acknowledging the supreme sovereign, the Holy One, who is praised, who spreads out the heavens and establishes the earth, whose esteem abides in the highest heavens, and whose powerful presence resides in the highest heights. This is our El, none else, right? Ours is the true creator, the true sovereign. There is no other, right? There is no other El to even recognize. So even when we say, oh, the devil may be doing it, what you're doing is you're recognizing an entirely different power, which is saying, yeah, I don't have a sovereignty over that. We have to understand is that good and evil does come from Yah. Yah even says this himself. Now, he doesn't tempt us like that. Yah does not tempt us, right? We're tempted when we get our own thoughts and turn all over ourselves, but that's even idolatry. Because now we're putting our will before the will of Yah. And so now we're worshiping ourselves, recognizing an entirely different power. And it is written in the Torah, know this day and take it to heart that Yah is Elohim in heaven above and on earth below. There is no other. Like these are the ideas that we have to start wrapping our minds around to understand how to truly reflect the image of Yah. Why reflect the image of Yah? Because the image of Yah is dealing with our intellectual perception of who Yah is and what Yah has created in the order that Yah has established. So when we deal with the image Salim, the Hebrew word is Salim, and when you read it in the Guide for the Perplexed, and they deal with this word Salim, you will see that it's dealing with the intellectual perception, right? So the image of Yah is parallel to the thoughts of Yah. The likeness of Yah is parallel to the ways of Yah, which is why in Yeshayahu in Isaiah it says, your thoughts are not my thoughts, your ways are not my ways. Because if we're doing what we're doing, we're not reflecting the image and likeness of Elohim. If we're doing our own ways and thinking our own thoughts, right? As heaven is higher than earth, right? So are my thoughts higher than yours. But how we gain Yah's thoughts is through what we're doing tonight. We're studying. We're learning the mind of Yah. This is the mind of Yah and how we go about observing the ways of Yah and knowing the thoughts of Yah. Who has known the thoughts of man but the spirit of the man, that is in him? Who has known the thoughts of Elohim but the spirit of Elohim? Well, this is the spirit of Elohim, his words. This is how we're getting to know the thoughts of Elohim, through his word. Hallelujah. Any comments, thoughts, questions before we keep it moving? Anything? All right, no worries. An idol. One thing I want to really hammer in, and this is for me first, idols do not have to be graven, literal graven images, like a literal figure, right? An idol can be something that we grave in our thoughts. It can be something that we grave in our heart, right? An image that we have in our mind that we're serving, right? Be it of ourselves, be it of someone else, be it of our children, be it of our family, be it of anything other than Yah. We're graving images when we are engraving images in our spirit, in our soul, if we are bowing down to them and serving them. And that's what this is really saying as well. This is not just a physical thing. That's something that the Spirit's been beating me in the head with lately, to understand that we're not just dealing with physical, literal images. We're dealing with ideas, right? We're dealing with principles, because when you really deal with what's called a teraf, the teraphim, right? Or a pasel here, a pasil, an idol. The idol represents an idea. That's what the idols represent, an idea. Let's do this. Let us do this. Idol. Lexicon. Sid. I don't use that word there, huh? Let me see. I need that word right there. Here we go. So this is to cut, to chip, hew, trim. The time came to hew two other tablets. This is the same word here. As soon as the Gentile has done chiseling on it, it becomes a deity, an idol forbidden for Israelites to use. When the Gentile has hewed it for Elohim, thou shalt not cover it. He chips it so as to unfit it as an idol, when thou mayest take it unto thyself. So this is what here it means as well, to chisel, to chip, right? Chip stones. To disqualify, to be the cause of disqualification, of to declare unfit. This is what that word means, right? How you prove that a Gentile can cancel his deity? By disfiguring it, right? It says here, woe to him who causes his descendants to be disqualified and his family to be tarnished by serving idols. He who tarnishes or casts suspicion on the purity of a family is himself tarnished of spurious descent. He charges others with his own defect. You can see this in nature. When people are guilty of something, many times what they do, they become blamatory. They'll blame someone else, or they accuse someone else of something, because guilt wants to associate their guilt with someone else. Misery loves company, right? So this is what this principle here is about. These idols, okay? Like I said, this was interesting, not even to make graven images for decoration, even when one does not worship them. So this is something that was interesting. He took that, let's get this here going. Right there. Let's see what this says relative to the Tanakh. So he quotes Exodus 20:19 through 21 and 23. Say to the Israelites, you shall say, you yourself saw that I spoke to you from the very heavens. With me, therefore, you shall not make any Elohim of silver, nor shall you make for yourselves any Elohim of gold. Do not send upon my altar my steps, that your nakedness may not be exposed on it. So they're comparing that to making anything in the representation of something other than what it is. Pretty much like no images is pretty much what it's saying across the board. And so this is just more preventative. It's more proactive in our approach to things. Of course, not offering our children to Molech, very important as well. Molech was interesting. It's spelled like almost like Malach or Melech, but it's a lot. It's a Mem, Vav, Lamet, Kaf. Okay, so it's Molech, but excuse me. Its root is melech, which can mean messenger or it can mean king. But this was the king of course, the deities of a different people. I need that to come back. Let me do this. So Molech was one that took child sacrifice. There was many different offerings of children that had taken place. In addition to that, this is where cannibals come from as well, because not only would they offer up the children on altars, they would also very sadistically eat the babies. It's not coming up. Let's go here. Let's do this. They call it Molach or Molech here. So the name Molech, later corrupted into Moloch, is an intentional mispointing of Melech, which is king, after the analogy of Bosheth. Okay. As to the rites which the worshippers of Molech perform, it's sometimes been inferred from the phrase "pass through the fire" to Molech that children were made to pass between two lines of fire as a kind of consecration or februation. Interesting month we're in right here. But it is clear from Isaiah 47:5 and Jeremiah 19:5 that the children were killed and burned. The whole point of the offering consisted, therefore, in the fact that it was a human sacrifice. Jeremiah 7:31 and Ezekiel 20:25 and 6. It is evident that both prophets regarded these human sacrifices as extraordinary offerings to Yah. Jeremiah declares that Yah had not commanded them, while Ezekiel says Yah polluted the Israelites in their offerings by permitting them to sacrifice the firstborn so that through chastisement they might know that Yah is Yah. The fact, therefore, now generally accepted by critical scholars, is that in the last days of the kingdom, human sacrifices were offered to Yah as king or counselor of the nation, and that the prophets disapproved of it and denounced it because it was introduced from outside as an imitation of a heathen cult and because of its barbarity. In course of time, the pointing of Melech was changed to Molech to further stigmatize the rites. So this is very dark. Let's get a little deeper understanding because we can see the contemporary practice of this every day. The motive for these sacrifices is not far to seek. It is given in Micah 6:7. Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? In the midst of the disasters which were befalling the nation, men felt that if the favor of Yah could be regained, it was worth any price they could pay. So this is going back really to the Akedah binding of Yitzhak of Isaac, when Isaac was taken to Mount Moriah and offered up, though he was told not to do it. And however, there was a corruption of the understanding of what Yah would do with the firstborn son, listen to what I'm saying, to go about attaining atonement for Israel through the firstborn son and the offering that was made there, not by the people in the sense that they were offering him up to themselves. This was a execution. An innocent man executed for the sake of the people. So this is very interesting that this is going over here in this light, because they corrupted what Yah had intended and what even Abraham told Isaac, in that he was as Abba. We got the fire, we got the wood, we got the knife. Where's the lamb? Says Yah will offer, or Yah will provide us the lamb, my son. But this was taken and completely not prophetically understood. And the result, Molech worship. Their Semitic kindred worshiped their mighty ones with offerings of their children. And in their desperation, the Israelites did the same. In their desperation, for some reason, perhaps because not all the priestly and prophetic circles approved of the movement, they made the offerings, not in the temple, but at an altar of pyre called Tafeth, erected in the valley of Hinnom. Right, this is what Gehenna is. Right, this is what the lake of fire is about. Okay, Tafeth also was later appointed Topheth, after the analogy of Bosheth. In connection with these extraordinary offerings, the worshippers continued the regular temple sacrifices to Yah. You can read that in Ezekiel 23:39. The Babylonian cylinder representing child sacrifice. This is from Minet Glyptique Oriental. From the fact that 1 Kings 11:7 calls Molech the abomination of the children of Ammon. This is again Ammon. Who's Ammon? Anybody remember who Ammon is? Who are the Ammonites? Also known as Ben Ami, son of my people. These are the offspring of the children of Lot and his daughters. One of the offspring, the other, of course, is Moab. So Molech is the abomination of the children of Ammon. It was formerly assumed that this worship was an imitation of the Ammonite cult. But so little is known of the Ammonite religion that more recent scholarship has looked elsewhere for the source. Because of the mention of 2 Kings 17:31 of Adramelech, Adar Melik, and Anamelech, Anu Malik, as the mighty one of the Sepharvaim transplanted to Samaria, it has been inferred that this form of worship was borrowed from Babylonia. This view rests on the supposition that Sepharvaim is equal to Separ, which probably is not the case. Even if it were, Anu and Adar were not mighty ones of Separ. Shamash was Elohim of that city, which is the name for the son, a servant. From this verse, therefore, a Babylonian or Assyrian origin cannot be demonstrated. Support for this view has also been sought in Amos 5:26, as if probable, Sikut or Chiyun in that passage are names or epithets of Babylonian deities. The use of Melech in connection with these affords no sound basis for argument. The whole passage may be, as Wellhausen and Nowak believe, a late gloss introduced on account of 2 Kings 17:31, and as in any case, too obscure to build upon. Furthermore, there is no evidence that the sacrifice of the firstborn was a feature of the worship of Babylonian deities. Because child sacrifice was a prominent feature of the worship of the Phoenician Malik, Baal, Kronos, it seeks to prove that the worship of Molech was introduced from Phoenicia. And this is where Isabel comes from. Okay? The evidence of its existence in Phoenicia and her colonies is especially strong. Diodorus Siculus tells of how the Carthaginians in a siege sacrificed 200 boys to Kronos. Burning was an important feature of the rite. Say la. Could you please drop a link for this also indeed coming to you right now? It's from the Jewish Encyclopedia. There you go. But you can still see some of these things offered today, though it may not be a literal burning in terms of fire. They're sacrificing their children. And this is something that is very disturbing, Bavakasha, relative to this has insidiously crept into our culture, even to this day. So we don't offer our children to Molech. We don't perform deeds associated with the Nav. What is an Av? Let's look up what an Av is. Ovi. Ovi. What is an Av? A necromancer. Wow. A medium. A spiritist. Often associated with practices of communicating with the dead. It's often mentioned in the context of idolatry and forbidden practices in Israelite law. The term is derived from the idea of a familiar spirit or ghost. It is often linked to negative commandments against such practices. So this is what an Av is. Very important. This is dealing with ancestor worship right here. So a lot of this dealing with ancestor worship. Of course, we honor and recognize our ancestors. We remember them. We don't invoke them. Like we're not trying to call upon them to have them come and be with us. No. We remember their deeds. We remember what they've left for us. We honor them in that sense. That's why we even do say Elohim of Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. We do, in a sense, invoke our ancestors, but it's the memory of our ancestors. And more importantly, it is the Elohim of our ancestors that we're invoking. We're connecting it with our ancestors. We're remembering the legacy. We're not worshiping them. We're not calling upon them to be a part of our present. Very important. What do you robots consume other robots and gain strength? What that's what? That's mad. What I never heard that before. That's crazy. Robots are eating robots now. My
That-
goodness.
Yes, it was an article out of Colombia. I saw a post and it was saying that the US has some firm that they approved their project to allow robots to build other robots. Like I don't even know. And then I Googled something and it was said the University of Columbia um has there's robots that are consuming other robots, and I thought instantly about like how this mimics what we're doing. Like it's very spiritual. It's very, very interesting. Yeah,
Mm.
very deep.
And see, the artificial is just reflecting what is done in the natural. And that's what's taking place. You're just seeing the artificial replicate, imitate, you know, uh, what's taking place in that sense. So no necromancy, no invoking the dead. Let's see what the Yidonim is. What is the Yidonim? The Yidoni. The Yidoni refers to the practice of idolatry where a person inserts a bone from a bird called Yaduah to their mouth, performs rituals, and then enters a trance-like state to make predictions about the future. This practice is explicitly forbidden in Torah. As stated in Leviticus 19:31, it is considered a form of divination that leads to spiritual impurity. The term is often associated with the practice of Av, which involves recalling the dead to speak through one's body parts. There we have it. And these are practices done by other peoples. Very common, right? And so it tells us here not even to take interest in the worship of false Elohim. Don't even consider. Don't even get fascinated. Don't. So why are they doing that? Don't. It's like when in Revelation 17, Yohanan sees this woman sitting on this scarlet beast. She's wearing purple. She's got this golden goblet in her hand. Probably very beautiful, right? Sitting on this scarlet beast with these names of blasphemy on it, 7 heads, 10 crowns. And the messenger asked Johanna, why are you marveling after this beast? Because he was probably like, oh my, that is crazy. But that's the mindset that we are not supposed to have about these things. We're not supposed to wonder about wickedness. We're not supposed to entertain thoughts that have wicked, like, energy and intentions associated with them. We're to rebuke those thoughts, right? We're to cast those thoughts off. We're to what does it tell us? To take those thoughts captive and subject it to Mashiyach. Excuse me. Very important. So not even to take interest in the worship of false Elohim. Shalom Aleichem. Shabbat Shalom to those who are in YouTube. Not to erect a pillar. These are obelisks. We know what obelisks are. Those are what you see as the Washington Monument. It's what you see in the Vatican Temple, in the Vatican City. That's what you see in London City. Those pillars, they're phallic symbols. Okay, that's why they use the word erect there, because they're phallic symbols. They're supposed to be representative of, if you go back to its origin, the penis of Osiris that was cut off, which his wife found, and through an incantation and some spells that she cast, impregnated herself and gave birth to Horus. This is their mythology. And so these pillars are in honor of the dismembered phallus of Osiris. We're not to erect these things. Okay. We don't make hewn stones. We don't really do anything with hewn stones in terms of like use it for worship or even temple, because these hewn stones are made with symbols of war, with instruments of war, iron, steel. We're people of peace. Don't plant the Asherah tree, right? These Asherah trees were where they would actually let's see what they would do with Asherah trees. Why Asherah trees? What was the significance of Asherah trees? Let's see what the Asherah trees were all about. To not plant any trees in the temple or next to the altar. And about this is it stated, you shall not plant for yourself a tree, Elohim, any tree next to the altar of Yah, your Elohim. Rambam, may his memory be blessed, wrote about the reason for this prohibition, that it is, since the worshippers of idolatry would do like this in their houses of idolatry, to plant beautiful trees there. And so to distance anything that is similar to them from the thoughts of people that come to the worship of Elohim, blessed be he, in the chosen place, we were prevented from planting any tree there. And from the angle of the simple understanding, this explanation is likely. From the laws of the commandment, that which they, may their memory be blessed, the sages, said that the prohibition is not only to plant the tree exactly next to the altar like the simple understanding of the verse, but rather even one who plants it anywhere in the temple yard is lashed, as the whole yard is called next to the altar. That whether it is a fruit tree or a fruitless tree, it is all included in this, and he is lashed for it. So to make offense for this prohibition, the sages also said that it is forbidden to make a veranda of wood in the temple in the way that people do in their own courtyards. And even though it is by building and not by planting, as it is stated, any tree which is also the wood for the wood, the word for wood, but rather all fine structures and verandas that extended from the walls that were in the temple were of stone, and all the rest of its details are elucidated in Tractate Talmud. This prohibition is practiced whether by males or whether by females, and even at this time, one who plants a tree anywhere in the temple yard is liable for lashes, because we do not worship Yah as the heathen worship Yah. Don't take a false oath. Okay, so this is pretty simple here. Like we don't swear to anything. We let our yea be yea and our nay be nay. Anything beyond that, Yahushua tells us is of the evil one. Okay, but we don't make even mention of other Elohim's names. But this is how deep this deception is. This is how deep our colonialism is, because every day of the week is named after a deity. Every month of the year, except for September, October, November, and December, is named after a deity. Many of the clothes that we wear, many of the pharmaceuticals that they give out, prescribe. There's so many things that are just inundated with false deities, and we're invoking them, which we're not supposed to do. One of my biggest contentions is the name that we use for the Messiah in the West, and the name that we use even for the Most High in the West. That's one of my biggest contentions, that those were not the names that were revealed to Israel that we use today, that came from men. Those names came from men and were translated. It's even said about the name of the Most High, the Jehovah. It was an erroneous translation by Tyndale. The history of that translation is it is erroneous. Taking the tetragram and imposing the vowels of Adonai over it, and then changing the letter Yod to a J. J didn't even exist. So now you got these names that don't even exist in our ancient tongue. And many of us are calling on that. And I know for sure, just taking Yahushua, he didn't want nothing to do with Caesar or Rome. Let me see that coin. Who's that image on the coin? Oh, that's it. Or give to Caesar what's to Caesar, but give to Yah what belongs to Yah. Yahushua didn't give nothing to Caesar. Not to act like a missionary, a Mashiyach, to persuade Jews to worship false Elohim, right? And we read this thoroughly in Deuteronomy 13. Like if somebody says, let's go after other Elohim, it says, don't spare them. Don't even spare them. Your hand will be the first to smite them. Of course, today our laws are a little different, but that would be done judicially. This is something that we have to understand. As we do with Mishpatim coming up this week, we were a very due process type of people. We weren't just arbitrary, cutting heads and flying heads. We were very judicial. Shabbat shalom, More Elihu. We're on the negative commandments, is going over the first 20. But these prohibitions are so important. These restrictions are so important. These negative commandments are so important for us to understand because, again, this is teaching us the true fear of Elohim, how to turn away from evil, which is a part of Chachma, which is a part of the wisdom. Okay. But it tells us here, don't show affection for the Masih. This is the missionary for the false Elohim. And it says also not to reduce one's hatred for the Masih. Don't even listen to him, right? Don't try to save a Masih, right? Don't have pity on the Masih. These are the missionaries for the false Elohim. Have nothing to do with them. Let your zeal burn for them, for y'all to cut them off. And this is even with the prayer of the in the Amidah, the prayer to ask for the cutting off of the arrogant and the false. It's not in the Kabbalat Shabbat prayer, but it is the Zadim, to cut the Zadim off. We're going to pick up, though, and keep moving forward. We're going to go from 21 to 40. Is anybody able to read 21 to 40? Can you read it out? You good? If not, I can pick it up. Just no worries. This sense here, missionary is one who is seeking to convince and to persuade, right here, an individual to worship all the false Elohim. Not to act as a missionary, a Masih, to persuade an individual Yahudi to worship false Elohim. Right? So this is about persuasion. These are workers for this false deity. But they also use the word, they use Masih there. So this is that word there, Masih. And they use Mashiyach here. So this is two different things. Let me see what a Mashiyach and a missionary is. Is that how they spell it? Mashiyach. They spell it M-A-D, Slikah. Mashiyach. No, they put Mashiyach. I put that in there. Let me see. It's not coming up. I don't know why they're bringing that up no more. Need that definition.
Yeah, scroll up though. Let's see it. Because that's in 15, ain't it?
Yes.
If you close that curtain, it'll be hot here.
Yeah, I was trying to see like what it looked like in Hebrew.
In the missionary here.
Look like it ain't up there.
The hadith right here, hadith. It's the hadith here.
Oh, so it's
Mashiyach, hadith.
yeah.
Here it is, though. Here's a Madiach. Here it is, Lamadiach. So they have Hadiach, and then they have Madiach here. Here we go. It came up now. Madiach, a seducer. Right? To seduce. That's what it is.
So how do we know if we operate in that space or not when we try to convince the world of Yeshua?
If you're doing that to worship him, I would say yes. Because we're not to worship anyone, but yeah. So if there is a convincing to say, worship Yahushua as Elohim, then that's where that line, I would say, is drawn. And not understanding that he's still a servant. Yahushua is a servant. He even said himself, my father's greater than me. In being one, Yehidah, that's the goal of every Israelite, in the kingdom. We're all to get to that level of Yehidah. My father one is something we're all supposed to say. And so I think there's a gross misunderstanding of what life he lived and what he came to show Israel and to do for Israel. We just read earlier about Molech worship. One of the things that Molech worship was predicated on was seeking atonement for their sins. So they would offer up their firstborn children. But I think it was, again, a misunderstanding, a misapplication of the Akeda binding of what Abraham did, but they also adopted it from outside culture as well. Now, I say that to say, like, okay, is Yahushua as an offering, is that something that is considered idolatry as well? Well, it is pretty much in Israel. Let's take the death of the high priest when someone carries out involuntary manslaughter. That person experiences atonement at the death of the high priest and is able to now return back to their life, right? And to be cleaned of their sin, forgiven of their sin, and atoned for, and come back to their home. Prior to that, they had to go to the cities of refuge. So there are instances when you do see the death of someone righteous atoning for other individuals, right? So there are things that do take place that we have to somewhat contextualize. But we can draw that out, that's something to really take into a more depth understanding as we do more research on that. That's a great question, though. Do you have any reflection yourself on that?
It's something I had to revisit because I'm constantly like reevaluating myself, my stance, my position.
Yes, sir.
And I asked that question because whenever I read stuff like this, I want to make sure that I'm not in bounds or out of bounds. You know what I mean?
Oh, man.
But concerning Yeshua, I guess the best way I be having in my head to conceptualize how we should view Yeshua is through somebody who I would say is in more contemporary times with me. The closest thing I know to Yeshua, a figure like Ben Ami or Prince
Mhm.
Shalia or Prince Asiel,
Mhm.
and I just know I wouldn't push them onto the people, but more so push their message onto the people. I don't care,
There it
if the
is.
next man next to me recognize Ben Ami to be who I recognize him to be. More so
Right.
is the message, not the messenger. You know what I mean?
I agree. No, I agree. And I even think that's what in the name of means. Like, when you're talking about lessons, Rabbi Ben Ami says this, right? Because you're
Yeah.
recognizing the wisdom that flowed through his vessel. But it's the wisdom and the message you're focused on, not so much him. But this is who it's credited to. So you got to recognize that at the same time. But
Yeah.
if that becomes the focus and the primary, that's where it gets lost.
Right, right. And that's the backdrop of what I'm putting it against. I know usually a lot of time we like to definitely put that major focus on it's about Yeshua more than about what the word he's talking about. Like I'm just thinking about his disciples. When his disciples
So
was out doing the work after he transitioned, I wonder if they had it in their head to be like present Yeshua to the world, or was they having it in their head to present the gospel to the world?
mhm. Hmm.
But
I think initially that was the case. I think when Rome got it, they twisted it up. That's my personal perspective.
that what that whole Council of Nicaea was about. Trying to
Yeah.
establish the divinity of whatever this Judaic messianic figure was.
Yeah.
Pretty
So
successful.
you remember when we went over how to cleave to Elohim? Like, what was the meaning of cleaving to Elohim? How we are to cleave to Elohim?
To bind to a sadi.
Exactly. But that doesn't mean you worship the Sadiq or you worship the Hazar.
Mm-hmm.
You cleave to them and their teachings. We are commanded to associate with and cling to Torah sages so that we learn its esteemed commandments from them, and they teach us the true opinions which are received through them about it. And about this it is stated, to him shall you cling. And the command is repeated in another place, and it is stated in Deuteronomy 11:22, and to cling to him. they, may their memory be blessed, the Kubalim, said in Ketuvot 111b, is it possible for a person to cling to the divine presence? And behold, it is written, for Yahweh Elohim is a consuming fire. Rather, one who clings to the Torah scholars and their students is as if he clings to him, blessed be he. Right? So there's a line that we have to be able to draw in this and make sense of. We're not worshiping the sage. Just as if we're married, we don't worship our spouse, but guess what we do with our spouse? We cling to our spouse. We cleave to our spouse.
Yeah.
It's that same principle.
Slika, if I may. Now that totally makes sense. But what about if we take this stance and perspective that's prevalent in our communities, where it's more than about whether or not I subscribe to Yeshua. No, matter of fact, I'm gonna say, guess what? Let's say I'm gonna take the stance of the position that I'm talking about. People usually would take. Shoot, you got to accept Yeshua, or you going to hell, or you not making it to the kingdom. You got to. Now, how could we validate that position when people do that? Because I'm saying, would that be somebody over presenting their teacher, their rabbi, their Messiah figure, rather than presenting the material? Is that putting that person, that Mashiyach, too much on a pedestal, saying you got to go this route, or if not, you not making it to the kingdom?
I think that message again is misappropriated. It's misunderstood. And saying that, this is just my thought as we're talking and discussing this, because well, even Yeshua is saying, he said, you search the scriptures because in them you think you have everlasting life, but you refuse to come to me. And even him saying that, I think that's a very misunderstood text, because we know what's the goal of the Torah? We've been talking about this and going over this. What is the goal of the Torah for Israel, for everyone who believes unto righteousness? What's the goal of the Torah?
The world to come
is to become messianic.
Mm-hmm.
Romans 10:4 says the goal of the Torah is Mashiyach, unto righteousness for all who believe. So what Yahushua is saying is you have to become like me. He's not saying be me. He's not saying worship me. He's saying if you're going to get into the kingdom, you got to be born again and become a Mashiyach.
What was that verse you just quoted?
Romans 10:4.
Okay.
It comes from Romans 10:4. The goal of the Torah unto righteousness for all who believe is Mashiyach. That's the goal of the Torah. Messiah is the fulfillment of the law for righteousness to everyone who believes. But this fulfillment, this word is goal. It is the end result. Right? When you fulfill the Torah, what becomes of you is Mashiach. So what we're saying is our master, we profess that he was one who fulfilled Torah. He became Torah made flesh. He embodied Torah. Right? And so saying that you have to come to Yahushua means you have to become like Yahushua. This is what it says even in 1 John 3. We know that when he appears, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. Everyone who has his belief in them cleanses himself.
I was just thinking about that, Luz. You check the chat, Moray.
14:6, John 14:6.
Could that John 14:6? I got a particular interpretation concerning that. And it's in the light of what we just spoke about.
But this is speaking of Torah. You can find the same passage in Psalm 119 where it says the Torah is the way, the Torah is the truth, the Torah is the life. Because what he's doing, he is embodying those principles, which we are all supposed to do. No one comes to the Father except through me. No one comes to the Father except through Mashiach.
You're right, because how did Abraham come to the Father?
As
if
Mashiach,
Yeshua wasn't born then?
As Mashiach. As Mashiach. That's the office that we all have to enter into. That's the office that we have to enter into. So what is taking place now, Yahushua is giving us a national perspective. He's coming to get the lost sheep He didn't come for the right. Keep this in mind. He didn't come for the righteous. He says this. Why is he not teaching the righteousness? Why? Because they knew that. They were already doing it. I didn't come but for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. I came to redeem the sinners. If you're sick, if you're healthy, you don't need a doctor. He said this. I didn't come to call the righteous to repentance. He literally said that. So what does that mean? Right? Let's read between the lines with that. If he's telling them, I'm the way, the truth, and life, there was already people walking in alignment with that. Matter of fact, when he rose from the dead in Matthew 27, who else rose from the grave after he rose from the grave? All kinds of people rose from the grave. Because they was ready.
Right. So if I may, verse 2 is, I always trip up on it. I think I heard your interpretation of verse 2, but I can't help but to see every time I see verse 2, I'm thinking about that, how Rabin would have their houses, their Batim or Beitim.
Uh-huh.
And so if he's saying my father's house are many mansions and many houses, if it weren't so, I would have told you, I'm going to prepare a place for you. When I see that, my brain keep going back to thinking about the fact that Yeshua is just one of the many houses that somebody can bind to the Creator to. That somebody in Enoch time could have binded to the house of Hanok. Somebody in the Moshe time binded to the
Bro,
Beit Moshe.
exactly. There you go. There you go.
And that way is not really focusing. Like this me talking. This only just Elihu. I'm not speaking for nobody. But I'm gonna say this: in Yeshua Bar Yosef time, the people who bonded to him was the people that needed to bind to him in his time.
Mhm.
That's why I'm saying in my stance, to me, the closest thing I got to me is Ben Ami, because Ben Ami was able to answer questions or concerns that only particular to our time frame. Yeshua Bar Yosef couldn't give any commandment concerning red 40, blue 1, yellow 5, certain chemicals that we eat, because he had to deal with Monsanto company. You got different messianic figures in different time frame to answer the
Undeniably.
need for that time frame. And
Every
so what I'm
generation has
saying,
its hadith. Yes, sir.
yeah, so what I'm saying, Yeshua is specific for his time frame. That's my stance on Yeshua Bar Yosef.
But the beauty of it is this, though. The truth that they speak is transcendent of generations. You know what I'm saying? The principle applies. You can find red 40 principles in his teachings as well. Principle. He may not literally say it, but you can find the principle in his teaching. Because that's the nature of Torah. Torah is going to be the living word. This is where halachot comes into it.
And outside of his teachings, somebody prior to him teaches.
Undeniably. Because he wasn't bringing anything new to anybody.
Right.
Undeniably. He was in the same stream that Abraham was in. He was in the same stream that all the prophets and prophetesses were in. Undeniably. But I was going to say, Hechalot. Read the teachings on the Hechalot. Right? If you want to say we're talking about these mansions, Hechalot, the palaces. That's what he's talking about. Hechalot. If you read that, these are teachings significant to mystics. And we know he was a mystic. He was a master Kabbalist, man. But it focuses on the ascent of the soul through heavenly palaces, involving visionary experiences and the summoning of messengers, aiming for communion with the divine. The texts such as Hechalot Rabbati and Third Enoch provide guidelines for spiritual practices and rituals to achieve these mystical experiences. The teachings are often associated with the Merkavah tradition, which he did reveal to them on the Mount of Transfiguration, and are considered a precursor to the later Kabbalistic thought. So if you want to understand what he's talking about, in my Abba's house of many mansions, read the Hechalot literature. This is where you would contextualize everything that he was saying with that. In John 14. 2 particularly. 6, the son. This is about the son. Kiss the son, lest he be enraged. But we know also that Israel is the firstborn son as well. We know that from Exodus 4. That was the first mention of who the son is. But him saying this here is about the office he is standing in. It is not about him himself. And that's the thing you got to understand about every anointed person in scripture. It is about the anointing and the office that they occupy. It's not about the individual. The individual is just the witness. The witness is pointing to what is truly the intent and the meaning and the significance of being one with Yah. We recognize them as accomplished and ascended masters, undeniably. They're masters. So we heed them, we respect them, we honor them. We even cling to their teachings because their teachings are so precise in getting us to understand that life. But we're not stuck on them. We're stuck on Yah. That's who we stuck on. We don't worship them. We worship Yah. They teach us how to do so. Does that make sense? Chat. Isn't he the word? But that's something we're all supposed to be. Yes, he is, but that's something we are all supposed to be. Every last one of us is supposed to incarnate the word. Every last single one of us are. In fact, when you read in Revelation 19, in confirmation of it, it tells us the marriage supper of the Lamb, verse 9, he said to me, "Write, blessed are those who are invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb." He said to me, "These are the true words of Elohim." The statement is not what the true words are. The true words of Elohim are those who have come to the marriage supper of the Lamb. Those are the true words. Those who have fulfilled Yah's words are Yah's words. That's what this is about. Yah's word does not come back to him void because he says in the beginning, "Let there be light," and there was light. And Yahushua tells us, "You are the light of the world." Who's the light then? Who is Yah calling into existence but us? So we have to see this in a much more profound sense, in a much more individual collective sense, because we are all a part of this body of Mashiyach. We're all a part of this body of Mashiyach. We are a kingdom of priests and priestesses. And what do you do with a priest to ordain them, to make sure that they're ready to officiate in their office? You anoint them. So we have to look at this in the light. Yes, Yeshua taught us this, but he wasn't the only one who taught us this. There are many. Enoch taught us this. Moses taught us this. Abraham taught us this. Melchizedek, Shem taught us this. And many, 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 many others. The Borah taught us this. Sarah taught us this. Hannah lived it. Ima Shemuel, the mother of Samuel, she taught that. She lived it. She didn't have to teach it because she lived it. The whole Amidah is based on her prayer in the temple, and Eli thought she was drunk. But she was that infused with the presence of Yah. She was Yechidah. She had Yahid with Abba Yah. Very much so. What was that mean? Question on the table for you. I caught loose. So yeah, very important. We're going to go into the next set of 20. Can you read that for us, Ak? Can you read the next 20? 21 through 40?
Yes,
Nah, I
sir.
get it. Okay,
Yes,
but
sir.
settle.
My bad. My computer
All
was
good.
now. Let me find something to cover my head real quick, black man. Boom, let's do it. Okay, you say 20?
21 through 40. It's 21 right here.
Oh, it's lit. That's a bit. For the slick guy. For the person whom a Mesit tried to convince, not to withhold any evidence he is aware of that would incriminate the Mesite. As Deuteronomy 13:9 states, and do not try to cover up for him. Not to benefit from ornaments that have ordained or have adorned false gods. Ooh-wee. As Deuteronomy 7:25 states, do not covet the gold or silver which is upon them. Dang, that's something. Not to rebuild an apostate city to its former stature. As Deuteronomy 13:17 states, it shall never be rebuilt. Dang, did we not participate? I'm gonna wait to my questions at the end. I got a lot of questions coming out of these. Not to
I love it.
not to benefit from the property of an apostate city, as Deuteronomy 13:18 states, let nothing that has been condemned cling to your hand. Not to benefit from false Elohim for any of their accessories, anything offered to them, or any wine brought as a libation for them. Deuteronomy 7:26 states, do not bring an abomination into your house. Ooh-wee. Not to prophesy. Dang, why haven't I been reading these? Not to prophesy in the name of false gods. As Deuteronomy 18:20 states, the prophet who speaks in the name of other gods shall be unalived. Not to relate false prophecies, as Deuteronomy 18:20 states, when a prophet presumptuously makes a declaration in my name, which I have not commanded him. Not to listen to someone who prophesies in the name of false gods, as Deuteronomy 13:4 states, do not listen to the words of that prophet. Not to refrain from executing a false prophet, nor to fear him, as Deuteronomy 18 states, do not fear him. Not to follow the laws or customs of the worshipers of false Elohim, as Leviticus 20:23 states, do not follow the practices of the nations that I am driving out before you. Not to practice black magic, as Deuteronomy 18:10 states, there shall not be found among you a magician. I wonder how far that go. Not to practice divination. Leviticus 19:26 states, do not practice divination. Not to act as a soothsayer, as Leviticus states, do not act as a soothsayer. Not to practice sorcery, as Deuteronomy 18:10 states, there shall not be found among you a sorcerer. Not to cast spells, as Deuteronomy 18:11 states, there shall not be found among you one who casts spells. Not to consult an obia, like the Jamaicans say, as Deuteronomy states, there shall not be found among you one who consults an obia.
Familiar spirits, right?
Right. It's funny. The Jamaicans maintain that Hebrew word. Not to consult a
You don't need.
Okay. Oh, now that's a familiar spirit right there. As
Yeah.
Deuteronomy states, there shall not be found among you one who consults an obia or you don't need. Not to seek information from the unalived in dreams. Wow. As Deuteronomy states, there shall not be found among you one who attempts to communicate with the unalived. For a woman not to wear articles appropriate for men. As Deuteronomy 22:5 states, a woman should not wear a man's clothing.
That's verse. That's 40.
For a man not to wear articles appropriate for women. As Deuteronomy 22:5 states, a man should not wear a woman's clothing. This prohibition was instituted because this is an idolatrous custom. Explicit statements to this effect are found in the text describing their worship.
That's idolatry. Wow. So let's roll back. Let's roll back. You go to 21.
21.
Okay, cool. I did see you mention John 1:14, of course. Uh, we're gonna let me uncover that first. Let's go to John 1:14 because this is again, yes, Yahushua accomplished that, but this is something that we are all supposed to accomplish. It goes on to the next verse and tells us if you read 15, well, I'm sorry, let's go before that, right? In verse 11 through 13, it says, He came to his own, and those who were his own didn't receive him. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of Elohim, to those who believe in his name, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of flesh, nor the will of man, but of Elohim, because it was the word of Elohim that gave them birth. So they became the word of Elohim as children of Elohim. That's how we become one with Elohim. That's going back to the thoughts and the ways, to the image and likeness of Elohim, because Elohim made us all in the image and likeness of Yah. Of Yah. Yahushua just came and showed us the image and likeness that we're all supposed to be reflecting. That's all we're supposed to do. Every true believer and every true worshiper of Yah in spirit and truth is to be a reflection of Yah on earth. That's what it is. So that's how John 1:14 makes sense, because we're all supposed to accomplish this. And then he even tells us greater things shall we do in his name, according to his teachings. If we follow his teachings will lead us to accomplish all that so that we become messianic. That's what those teachings are doing for us. You have a question about wearing men's clothing. What's your question about men's clothing? Let's go back.
And I know it might be silly, but I was kind of wondering across the lines, is it just more like, when women try to be like dressed like men on the, like transgender thing, or because, sometimes us women, when we have our men and stuff, we like to steal y'all hoodies and wear them. And, technically it's your clothing. But to us, when we wear it, it's ours. But it's still men's clothing. So it started making me think of something even as simple as that we may think is innocent, if maybe that goes into the line of that.
Let's take a look. Let's go to what our ancestors would say about that. I think that's a very interesting point. And again, this is where we have the ability to exercise halakha, right? We're able to prohibit and to permit matters within our community. Yahshua told us, what you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. What you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, because this word is living. As a living word, what we do with it, we take the principles and we apply it to our particular generation. Just like you said, Yahshua didn't have to deal with red 40 and blue, all them dyes and stuff, and all high fructose corn syrup and all these, what they call them? Well, I'm gonna call them what they are: genetically modified foods. They want to call them bioengineered, but our ancestors didn't have to deal with that stuff. Well, they were different, halachot relative to the food. But we have the ability to apply Torah in our life given the circumstances that are present today. But a man should not wear the clothes of a woman, that men should not wear the clothes of women. And about this it states, and a man should not wear the garment of a woman. What is written concerning the previous commandment is from the roots of the commandment, the laws of the commandment. That which they, the ancestors, the sages, may their memory be blessed, said in Machot Kuni B, that the prohibition and lashes are not only for clothing, but the same is true about their grooming. As anyone who grooms himself with the adornments that are unique to women is obligated in getting lashes. For example, one who plucks out white hair from the black ones from his head or from his beard, and so too, one who dyes his hair in the way that women dye theirs. And so did Onkelos translated, the man should not groom with the adornments of a woman. And that which they, may their memory be blessed, said, see Mishneh Torah, foreign worship and customs of the nations, that a tumtum and an androgynous, two categories of people, the sex of which is in doubt, should, like a woman, not wrap their head, and should, like a man, not shave their head, and that if they do so, they are not lashed. And so too in every place. We give them the stringencies of men and women, but if they transgress, they are not lashed, because they represent a doubt. But if they transgress a prohibition that a man and a woman are equal in, it is not necessary to say about this that they are lashed for it. And its other details are elucidated in Tractate Nazir in the chapter entitled Mishneh Nizarim. And this prohibition is practiced in every place and at all times by males. And one who transgresses this and wears the clothes of women or grooms himself with the adornments of women, for example, he plucks out white hairs from black ones, or he dyes even one hair, is liable for lashes from when he plucks or dyes. That's his hair.
Did it say that head wrap was for women?
Right here. Yeah. Women not wrap their heads.
No,
Right?
like women should, like a woman, not wrap their head.
So a woman should not wrap her head and a man should not shave his head. Or is that saying a man should shave his head and a woman should not wrap, or a woman should wrap her head?
Yeah, I think it's saying a man should not wrap his head and a woman should not shave her head.
Okay, I got it. I see what you're saying. Agreed. I agree with that.
Wow. I reckon I'm gonna have to figure that out. I be wrapping the mess out my head.
I mean, we wore turbans, though. Our ancestors wore turbans, but it was like, I don't know. It's an interesting matter there because our ancestors wore turbans. Yeah. So yeah, this is interesting.
Sure.
Let's check this one out here. He prohibited us from men adorning themselves with women's ornaments, and that is his saying, nor may a man wear a woman's garment. And any man who adorns himself like this or wears what is well known in that city to be an ornament specific to women is lashed. You should know that this procedure, meaning that the women adorn themselves with men's ornaments and the men adorn themselves with women's ornaments, is done to arouse the drive for promiscuity, as is explained in the books written about this. And it is often placed in the stipulations for the making of some talismans and said if a man is occupied with it, he should wear women's garments and adorn himself with gold and pearls and that which is similar to them. But if it is a woman, she should wear armor and arm herself with swords. And this is very famous among those of this opinion. Say loud. Very interesting. And I mean, it's, no taking the hoodies. It's interesting because we just read a little while ago about how to not make any images, even in decor. We shouldn't even make images for decoration. To prevent and to create that fence, if you will, of the Torah, so that we don't transgress Torah. And I don't know. This is where we have to have our the Beit Din come into the matter to really understand. I don't want to give my opinion about it because this is something that, I mean, I'm of the mind, like, if someone is in the practice of dressing or cross-dressing of something of that nature, that's where the issue becomes Torah violating. You see what I'm saying? If you're, with your loved one and you got their hoodie on, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's something. I don't look at it in terms of that's what you're doing, to present yourself in a different identity. Like, this is, and I don't know. I mean, I really can't like make a authoritative stance on that because this is something that this is challenging. We've read this before, but looking at it how it is done by the nations and what the people who are practicing this, what they're doing, is different than what you're doing and wearing your booze shirt, so to speak, your booze hoodie, your booze, that stuff. So it's different in some ways, but I mean that's something we got to rule on, and this is the beauty of us as a nation. We have to codify this ourselves now. That's what Yahushua and many other sages have given us the responsibility to do, to bind and loose. So yeah, that's deep. That's really deep. You said you had some questions. You had some comments to make about these particular passages here. Is there anything you wanted to touch on in particular?
Yeah. It's particularly, let's see, verse 22, not to benefit from ornaments that have adorned false Elohim.
Mm.
Mm. Yeah. I
What
can't
struck you
remember
with
the
that?
exact. Say it again.
I said, what struck you with it?
That's what I was trying to figure out. That's why I was just ad-libbing, 'cause I couldn't put no language to it. I guess in my head I was trying to process what all constitute like what these false gods or false images look like. And I'm trying to imagine like any adornments and jewelries that may be on false gods in our everyday lives that we may not particularly pay attention to, or from the benefit of any of these deities or
Okay.
systems.
Okay. It says that we were prevented not to benefit from the coverings of idolatry,
Mm-hmm.
even when it is not forbidden to benefit from the idolatry itself, such as if one bowed to something that is not in the holding of a man's grasp, not created by him, like a mountain, an animal, or a tree, as it is not prohibited to benefit from them. Nonetheless, the covering that is upon them is forbidden to benefit from, since they are included in the auxiliaries of idolatry that are forbidden. And about this, it is stated, you shall not covet silver and gold that is upon it, and take it for yourself. And even though it is stated in another place more generally, and nothing shall cling to your hand, a negative commandment was specified about the covering, as the fools will place their eyes upon them. It is from the roots of the commandment that it is in order to distance any matter of idolatry and anything associated with it. The laws of the commandment are elucidated in the third chapter, Avodah Zarah, right? This is idolatry. And it is practiced in every place and at all times by males and females. And one who transgresses it and benefits from its coverings, and even the smallest amount, is liable to receive that belt.
Mm. Mm. So in the earlier part of that passage, it looked like things in nature like mountains and so on and so forth don't have the same prohibition as something that's created by the hand of man, huh?
No doubt, no doubt, no doubt. And that's like, the better hope that we give for things that we see in nature. You know what I mean? When you see like, a star flashing, you got the blessing for that. When you see, a powerful mountain, you get the bless. There's things that we offer our blessings for. But the thing is, you're not stuck on the servant, right? You're not stuck on the creation. You're acknowledging Yah's sovereignty in him bringing that forth. That's what the blessings are for. Like, we don't bow to the object. We bow to Yah in recognition of the grandeur of what he has created. But if it is associated to idolatry in any way, shape, form, or fashion, we have nothing to do with it. Nope. We don't even acknowledge it, bro. It's like it doesn't exist. That's like going to what the days of creation, the first day of creation. Yah said the light. He said it was good. What did he say about the darkness? Not a team. Not a team. So we don't derive anything from anything that is not of Yah. So these man-made things, we have to definitely be able to check. You know, you did with here not to rebuild an apostate city to its former status. You was like, ooh, like what did you think of when you heard that? When you read that?
Okay. Apostate would be referring to anybody or anything that went against
Mm-hmm.
the order, right?
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
So if it's a city that's an apostate city and it seemed to be got decentralized, got destroyed, or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
it's telling us not to participate in the restructuring and rebuilding of this city. Is that what they're saying, right?
Undeniably, undeniably.
Mm. And it made me start to think about our participation in like places like the U.S.
Mm.
Our participation in their government and their systems, and like it seems
Mm-hmm.
like we can't escape the participation because it's like Israel is scattered everywhere. Like we don't have our own place. We gotta participate. But like, what's the limitations? Because it seems like scriptures sometimes tell us to go the opposite way. So not to rebuild an apostate city.
So what do the Amish do? What the Quakers do? How they go about their business?
Shoot, they definitely got their own
Mm.
system set up.
So it's not impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, our goal is Gayula. Our goal is to return to our inheritance. That's the goal, right? But I mean, even in that though, are we rebuilding an apostate? Was Israel not an apostate city? Does Lamentations not tell us what took place in Jerusalem?
Wait, see, yeah, go back up. Go back up. Bivakucha. Bivakucha. It
Those are
say
evil.
not to rebuild an apostate city to its former stature. As Jerome 13,
Into its
17 says.
apostate state. So it's like the apostate state. We're not dealing with the apostate state. You want to get it back to its Yah founded state.
Ah, okay. Yeah, don't put it back into. Yeah, okay, I see. But a
Mm-hmm.
former stature would be the apostate state.
Yeah.
Mm.
That was a good, clear revelation. I needed that one. I was like, hold up. We in
Mhm.
trouble. We in trouble. No, but that makes sense now. That makes sense. And that's rich.
But it said also not to benefit from the benefits of an apostate state, huh? Or
Mm-hmm.
apostate city. That
Property.
nothing that
Yep.
has been. I mean, the only thing,
Man.
see, I gotta. The only thing is trying to figure out what exactly constitutes apostate city, but because that right there would be in conflict with like places like shoot when we came out of Egypt, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't we benefiting from the resources that we got from there?
Mm. Yeah. In ways. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. And then they dedicated it though. That's interesting.
Enticed city. About this is stated. Ain't nothing. And a
Like no
theme.
thing. That's curse. Yeah.
Mm.
Curse.
And no thing from the anathema shall stick to your hand. And also
Mm-hmm.
included in this negative commandment is anything from idolatry, as I have written above in the order of Vihaya Echev in the last warning, negative commandment in the order Sefer HaChinuch 429. And then in it, I wrote about the roots of this commandment and all of its content in the same is the same.
Not to do with anything that's of the curse.
I reckon that makes sense because this might be.
But anything that been doomed stick to your hand.
Mm.
And see, this is where you got to really ask yourself, like, okay, if you look at how much of us are so caught up on this Federal Reserve note, bro.
Yeah.
But it's doomed. It's doomed. It was doomed from its inception, right? Because it's not
Mm.
even real. There's nothing backing it but the faith of the people. So how do we pivot? How do we move? But understand what Yah has given us to create.
Mm-hmm.
Yah has given us an economy. Yah has given us. He's given us a governance. He's given us. He's given us everything. Yah's our lawgiver. Yah's our judge. Yah's our king. He shall save us. Right? We got to understand that verse from Isaiah. What's that? 33:22. But we're so stuck on the apostate city,
Mm.
and we just take handouts like it's Halloween, bro. You know what I mean? Like we just trick or treating.
Now, concerning when you said that the Federal Reserve note is maybe a cursed item, huh?
I don't know.
Um,
I mean,
would you say the same thing for even digital USD? Because is digital USD really the same as the tangible reserve note we got, the Federal Reserve note?
some do have stable coins, but they're backed by the dollar. So there's the crux. I mean, this is where you got to get back to real money. I would argue that silver, gold, right? And then we got to. I mean, we're supposed to have our own economy. If you look at how Chinese function in America, they have their own economy. Their dollars, they barter. They have, I mean, barter. We could do all. There's all kinds of things that we could do to sustain ourselves as a people. All kinds of things we could do. So this is just, I mean, this is just food for thought. What we're doing is just considering what this is like, because again, Yah's calling us to be what kind of people? What kind of people has He called Israel to be in Exodus 19?
A peculiar people, a nation of priests, kingdom of
A
priests.
holy people, a set apart people. We're not like the other nations. We're not supposed to be like these other nations. But guess who we following? These other nations.
Mm. Yep. In all kinds of ways too, following them. Even I realize, even when it seemed like what we want to convince ourselves that we not. And I'm speaking particularly to the Hebrew Israelite community. I realized I was thinking about this earlier this week that is the Hebrew Israelite community for the most part, majority is just an updated version of
Christianity.
Eurocentric religions like the
Christianity.
Roman Catholic Church. At
Yeah.
some point, there were a group of Roman Catholics who broke apart, and he called this the Protestant Reformation. But they still kept core Catholic Christian fundamentals. They just
It is.
updated it. And
Yep.
then you start to get a bunch of splinter groups that did the same thing for the Protestants. And now the Hebrew Israelites are just a Protestant, they a Christian reform group that just is still operating within that same Eurocentric system, though.
100%.
You ain't really
100%.
go against you ain't really go against the fundamentals that you learned as a Christian. All you did was update it.
And,
Use
and
sacred
then let's add
names.
this to it. There's so much anti-Semitism in there that it's ridiculous, huh?
Mm,
We are so against our culture, bro. Like when it comes to
yeah.
dealing with the oral Torah, whoa, there's so much venom in the mouth of these people and their hearts. They're not trying to deal with oral Torah. But how can we contextualize if we don't understand the jurisprudence? Who's comment? But we got all these other commentaries we referring to.
Yeah.
We just don't want to deal with our own commentaries. It's wild.
All right.
That's wild. Yeah.
So yeah, we what all we man, hey, we got work to do. A lot
Danger,
of
bro. But that's why we're getting into these texts like this because these things, I'm only going to get into one more. It's getting a little late. I ain't going to keep us up here all night. It's almost 9. I haven't really eaten. I got some food that I had earlier that I just set aside, but I'm about to go eat in a little bit. But these principles are so important for us to understand because what he's doing is taking Torah and giving us a context of it. Some of this stuff ain't even context. Like, what does this mean to not bring abominations into our house? Don't benefit from any false Elohim, from their accessories, anything offered to them, or any wine brought as a libation for them. You know how many people go eat over people's houses on these hollow days? And those days are not to Yah, so if they're not to Yah, who are they for then? So look at what's happening. Committing idolatry. Unbeknownst.
I think it's a place in the Proverbs too where it talk about not even eating from somebody who have a evil eye towards you. But I take that more than just about like an envious or evil eye like that. But
Yeah,
like me personally, I'd be very cognizant about where I'm eating at.
got to.
Just because of verses like this, though, you know, it's also a place in the prophets where this one prophet was told not to eat in the city when he go to prophesy.
Mm.
And when he got there, he was telling everybody, "Yeah, no, I'm straight, I'm straight, I'm straight." And another prophet came to him and said, "No, I just received a prophecy saying that you could eat."
Remember that.
Yeah, and the boy went on and ate
Got
and then he
smacked.
got ate by a lion, I think.
Got smacked. Yup.
All because he listened to somebody who said they was a prophet. But he was told something from the first get-go.
Period. Wow. I remember that story. Wow.
That's scary though, bro.
That's real. But these what we're reading is what we're sharpening ourselves. We're narrowing our field of view. Remember, we read on Revi'i, enter the narrow gate. Right? Into the narrow gate. So what we're doing is we're sharpening our vision. It's not bad to have a single eye. So we have to really be able to really discern these things. And then you just talked about this prophet. Don't prophesy in the name of false Elohim. Keep in mind, someone can complain that can proclaim the name of Yah, but because they're not keeping the way of Yah, they're still in the fault. They're still worshiping false Elohim. They're still worshiping false Elohim. Just because someone says the name, just like Yahshua said, just because you say, Master, Master, have I not done this in your name? Have I not done that in your name? And he said to them, depart from me. I never knew you, you worker of Torahlessness, you worker of lawlessness. Your ways are not my ways. Your thoughts are not my thoughts. That's a whole different image and a whole different likeness. And we got to be able to discern these things. And this is how we do it. We study to show ourselves approved, workers who can rightly divide the word, right? Not be ashamed. Not to relate false prophets. You know how many false prophets, and the prophecy is not a prediction. A lot of people think it's all about prediction. No, they're not revealing the will of Yah. There's so many people relating false prophecies because they're not revealing the will of Yah, which is the ultimate goal of a prophet, to share the will of Yah, to reveal that. Shall I hide from my servants what I'm about to do? The prophets, shall I hide from my servants the prophets? What my will is, what I'm about to do in this situation? No, I will not. So the key is to know the will of Yah. And there's so many people not relating Yah's will today. Making presumptuous declarations because they didn't stand. Jeremiah 23 is so important. It's so important. He says concerning the prophets, my heart is broken in me. With my heart within is broken. All my bones shake. I'm like a drunken man and like a man who wine has overcome because Yah and because of his holy words. For the land is full of adulterers, right? This is idolaters. For because of swearing, the land mourns. They're not teaching and they're not standing in Yah's name. But they're swearing, not keeping their word. The pastures of the wilderness are dried up. Their course is evil and their might is not right. For both prophet and priest, Kohen, are profane. In my house have I found their wickedness, says Yah. All right, let me go down. He says, thus says Yah Sevaot, don't listen to the words of the prophets who prophesy to you. They teach you vanity. They speak a vision of their own heart and not of the mouth of Yah. They say continually to those who despise me, Yah has said, you shall have shalom. And to everyone who walks in stubbornness of his own heart, they say, no evil shall come on you. Here's the key. For who has stood in the counsel of Yah, that he should perceive and hear his word? Who has marked my word and heard it? Right? This is the key. This is about the study. This is about cleaving to the sages. This is about learning the word, not having your own private interpretation. No prophecy has ever come to anyone by private interpretation. Let's not forget that. Let's not forget that. Knowing this first, that no prophecy of scripture is of private interpretation. For no prophecy ever came by the will of man, but set apart men of Elohim spoke, being moved by the Ruach HaKodesh. And the Ruach HaKodesh is not just, something that you just catch. It's just so important for us to delineate, right? Because we got a lot of private interpretation that is deviating from the way of Yah. But this is how we're getting to know the way of Yah again. He says, don't even listen to someone who prophesies in the name of false Elohim. And that false Elohim can be what we consider anti-Mashiyach. What is anti-Mashiyach? That means another Messiah. It doesn't mean against Messiah. It means there's a substitute. There's a counterfeit. All right, when you look at that word anti-Messiah, look at this. Let's look at this word. When you look up the word antichrist in the lexicon, antichristos, 2 words, right? This is the word for anti. It means over, against, opposite to, before, for, instead of, in place of. It doesn't mean against. It means like a substitute, right? Instead of, in place of. So a lot of times when you hear that word anti-Mashiach or anti-Messiah, people think, oh, it's easy to tell them because they're against the Messiah. No, it doesn't mean that. It means they're giving you someone else. They're replacing you. That's what the replacement theology is all about. Yeah, the ones that are against are easy to tell, but it's those substitutes that's hard to tell. It's those counterfeits that are hard to tell. The ones who aren't established in Torah, written and oral. Look, don't refrain from executing a false prophet. Don't follow the laws and customs of the worshipers of false Elohim. This is what we're doing. Our people are so stuck on Cinco de Mayo. They're so stuck on St. Patrick's Day. They're so stuck on what's tomorrow? Valentine's Day. People are so stuck on these practices of these Gentiles that it's ridiculous. Lupercalia has nothing to do with Yah. I mean, Valentine's Day, which is Lupercalia. But these practices that we're carrying out are leading us further and further from our liberation, from our salvation, which is what liberation is. We're getting further and further away from our goal. And we're doing it to ourselves. No black magic. No magicians. What is magic? Magic is what you're doing to bring forth. Oh, wow. And I've been using this word here. To not engage in clairvoyance. That we were prevented to not engage in clairvoyance. Rambam, may his memory be blessed, wrote in HaMitzvot, Sefer HaMitzvot, the negative commandments, that the matter of clairvoyance is the restraint of his ability and thought to concentrate on one of the types of movement. Like all of the men of these abilities all do. That they should tell them what will happen before it does. That's why predictions really are not the point of prophecy. It's about the will of Elohim. Truly it becomes realized for them, and that the power of their concentration and their quantity from it is very strong. The explanation of his explanation is, meaning to say, that they isolate themselves in their thoughts and fix all of their concentration and all of their feeling to that matter that they want to know. And from the isolation and the strong fixing and the elimination from their thought of all matters of the physical world, their souls mix with the spiritual forces that become aware of near futures, as is known among the wise men. But nonetheless, they never have the power, and not even in demons, to know the distant future. And no one can arrive at this great level except for a true prophet. And even in near futures, the clairvoyants do not fathom the whole truth, but rather only most of their words come true. That's what, like, what's that dude's name? Nostradamus, right? And in this matter itself, not all of the people are the same in it. Rather, there are some who have much superiority in these matters, like the superiority of people in strength and in other things that some have over others. And the actions of the people with these abilities are not all the same, as among them are some that isolate themselves in the deserts to focus on this. And from them, one that hits the ground with the stick in his hand, blows that come quickly one after the other, and yells out strange yells, and leaves his thoughts and looks to the ground a long time until he understands what will happen. and Rambam, may his memory be blessed, testified that he saw this once in the West. And among them, there is one who flattens the sand and makes images in it. And this is done by many people in the West. And among them also is the one who throws small stones in a piece of leather, and he stares at them for a long time. And among them is one who does this craft with handfuls of barley and a grain of salt and charcoal mixed in. And this is famous among as the Ishmaelite men and women always do it in front of our eyes. And among them also is one who throws down a leather belt to the ground and stares at it and speaks. And the intention of all of this is to arouse the ability of the soul that can seek. Excuse me. And our perfect Torah distance us from all of these matters. And about all of this was it stated, there shall not be found in you a clairvoyant, a soothsayer, a diviner, etc. And I've already written in the warning negative commandment about do not divine in the order of Kedoshim, the set apart ones, Sefer HaChinuch 249. What I have known about the reason for these matters, and I saw in the books of the early scholars about the reason for this prohibition, that it is because all of these matters mislead the masses. And because some of what the clairvoyants tell them come out to be true, they think that the constellations and powers are the cause of all actions that are in the world. And they can almost be called part of the evil group that say Yah has abandoned the land. And because of this matter, which very famous at the time of the prophet said, my people ask its wood, and its stick will speak to it. I mean, we can go on and on, but this is very clear, right? We trust in Yah. We don't put our trust in the flesh of man, in the arm of man. We trust in Yah. We follow Yah's word. We do Yah's will. We keep Yah's word. We trust in that. That's what we look to. The principles of the word, right? And this is how we learn to do it. Unto righteousness. No divination, no soothsaying, no sorcery, no casting of spells, not to consult the familiar spirits. I forgot what it said what the Yidoni were. The Yidoni, let's see what the Yidoni were again. Yidonim. Let's go back one. It's just idolatry. And they put bones in their mouth and they would perform rituals and go into trance-like states. My goodness. My goodness. Not to seek information from the dead in dreams, right? And of course, the articles of clothing. Let's wrap up with 41 through 60. I'll read this and we'll wrap it up. Ooh-wee. Not to tattoo our bodies like the worshippers of false Elohim. As Leviticus 19:28 states, do not tattoo your flesh. Not to wear sha'at nets, as do the priests of false Elohim. As Deuteronomy 22:11 states, do not wear sha'at nets. Not to shave the temples of our heads. Wow, as do the worshippers of false Elohim states, do not shave your temples. Man, I'm such a temple taper head. Oh my goodness. Turn the album. Not to shave off our beards entirely, as do the priests of false Elohim, as Leviticus 19:27 states, do not shave the corners of your beard. Not to make cuts in our flesh, as the worshippers of false Elohim do, as Deuteronomy 14:1 states, do not cut yourselves. The dida is another term for cutting. Not to ever dwell in the land of Mizraim, as Deuteronomy 17:16 states, do not ever return on this path again. Not to stray after the thoughts of one's heart or the sights one's eyes behold, as Numbers 15:39 states, do not stray after your heart and eyes. Not to establish a covenant with the 7 Canaanite nations, as Deuteronomy 7:2 states, do not establish a covenant with them. Not to allow a single member of the 7 Canaanite nations to live, as Deuteronomy 20:16 states, do not allow a soul to live. Not to show favor to the worshippers of false Elohim, as Deuteronomy 7:2 states, do not show them favor. Do not allow the worshippers of false Elohim to settle in our land, as Deuteronomy 23:33 states, they shall not settle in your land. Not to marry Gentiles, as Deuteronomy 7:3 states, do not marry among them. for a Yahudi woman never to marry an Ammonite or a Moabite, even after conversion. As Deuteronomy 23:4 states, an Ammonite or a Moabite shall never enter the congregation of Elohim. Not to prevent the third generation of converts from the descendants of Esau from marrying among the Yahudi people. As Deuteronomy 23:8 states, do not utterly despise an Edomite. That's a problem for people right there. Ooh-wee. Not to prevent the third generation of Mitzrayite converts from marrying among the Yahudite people. As Deuteronomy 23:8 states, do not utterly despise a Mitzrayite. Not to make an offer of peace to Ammon or Moab after the outbreak of war, as is done for other nations. As Deuteronomy 23:7 states, do not seek their peace and welfare. Not to destroy fruit trees, nor to destroy anything else of value. As Deuteronomy 20:19 states, do not destroy its trees. For soldiers not to fear or become frightened of the enemy during war. As Deuteronomy 7:21 states, do not panic before them. And Deuteronomy 3:22 states, do not fear them. Not to forget the wicked deeds which Amalek perpetrated against us. As Deuteronomy 25:19 states, do not forget. The prohibition against blessing, i.e. cursing Elohim's name. As Deuteronomy 22:27 says, do not curse Elohim. Leviticus 24:16 mentions the punishment. One who curses the name of Elohim shall surely die. This is a general principle. A negative commandment is involved whenever the Torah mentions the punishment or karet or execution with the exception of circumcision and the Paschal sacrifice, which are positive commandments punishable by execution or karet. Selah. Yeah, man. And woman. Our culture is so set apart. And this is all of this here is to set us apart. And what is it? We talked about this last time. What is the purpose of our being set apart? Why is Yah causing us to be set apart? What is the reason for that?
Holiness.
Right, but what's the purpose of holiness? Holiness has an outcome. What's the outcome of holiness?
To help redeem his people.
Okay. Okay. And in redemption, when redemption is achieved, what becomes the reality? Uh-huh. To be kingdom worthy means what? So when the kingdom is present, what also has to be present with the kingdom? I'm gonna give you a hint. It's a part of the word. What has to be present for the kingdom to be manifest? Better question. Who has to be present for the kingdom to be manifest? It's in the word.
The community, the priests, and his community, the community.
The king.
Yes.
For the kingdom to be made manifest, the king must be present. The king. Now here's the question. How does the king manifest with Israel? How does Shekinah manifest for Israel? We about to go there.
Through the bride?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Through the people, right? The people are the Shekinah of Yah. The reason for set apartness, the reason for our set apartness is so that Yah's presence is made manifest. Yah will not manifest without holiness. The commandments are what set us apart, right? This is what the commandments are for, because they set us apart in order for Yah to dwell in our midst. That's what it's about. Let's see. The term Shekinah, which is in Hebrew, whereas Memra and Yechara are Aramaic, took the place of the latter two in the Talmud and Midrash, and thus absorbed the meaning which they have in the Targum, where they almost exclusively occur. Nevertheless, the word Shekinah occurs most frequently in the Aramaic version, since they were intended for the people and were actually read to them, and since precautions had therefore to be taken against possible misunderstandings in regard to the conception of Elohim. The word dwell in the Hebrew text is accordingly rendered in the Targumim by the phrase "let the Shekinah rest." Onkelos translates Elohim in Genesis 9:27 by Shekinah, and wherever the person, the dwelling, or the remoteness of Elohim is mentioned, he paraphrases by the same word. He substitutes the term Shekinah. Wherever the name occurs, he substitutes for it the term Shekinah. And presence or face is translated the same way. An anthropomorphian, Targum Pseudo Yonathan, and Yerushalayimi adopt a like system. And Canto, this is a Song of Solomon 6:1, where the text states that Elohim dwells in the temple above the cherubim, or that Elohim has been seen. The Yerushalayimi Talmud has Shekinah, and even where it describes Elohim as abiding in heaven, the same word is used. The statement holds true also of allusions to his remoteness or to the hiding of his face. The temple is called the house of the Shekinah. Keep in mind, we're the temple. And the term is likewise occurs in the word with esteem. And with, here it is, Kedusha. So let's make the connection, right? When we understand this to be the dwelling of Elohim in the midst of Israel, right? But in the midst of Israel means just like the kingdom is in your midst, and the kingdom is in you. So the Shekinah is in us, and when we come together as one, that is where Elohim will manifest. And that's what this is all about. These restrictions, these negative commandments, the positive commandments are so that we are presenting ourselves to the presence of Yah, so Yah can dwell with us, so he can indwell our bodies. Remember, you are the temple of Elohim. That's what we have to understand. And the world will know Yah when we manifest Yah, which is even Mashiyach, which is the image and likeness of Elohim, to the world. And that's what these commandments are all for. It says, now the booth of Elohim is with men. This is what it's telling us. We are the booth. No more will they say the Ark of the Covenant. Jeremiah tells us this. In Jeremiah 3, no more will they say the Ark of the Covenant. It ain't about the Ark of the Covenant. It's about the people. Where does he say this? It shall come to pass when you are multiplied and increased in the land in those days, says Yah, they shall no more say the ark of the covenant of Yah. Neither shall it come to mind, neither shall they remember it, neither shall they visit it, neither shall that be done anymore. At that time they shall call Jerusalem the throne of Elohim. This is talking about the people, y'all. And all the nations shall be gathered into it, to the name of Yah, to Jerusalem. Neither shall they walk any more after the imagination of their evil heart. In those days the house of Judah shall walk with the house of Israel, and they shall come together out of the land of the north to the land that I've given for an inheritance unto your fathers. Right? But I said, how shall I put thee among the children and give you a pleasant land, a goodly heritage of hosts of nations? And I said, they shall call me my father, shall not turn away from me. Right? That's what it's about there. Because it's not about this physical vessel, this wood and gold plated vessel. That's never where Yah desired to dwell. He desired to dwell in his people. And the way that he dwells in his people, he dwells with his people, is through our keeping his word and becoming his word and becoming the presence, the image, the likeness of Elohim with the thoughts and the ways of Elohim carried out in our day-to-day life. Say loud, say loud, say loud. Any closing thoughts, reflections, questions before we wrap this up? All right, the seeds are settling. The seeds are settling.
It's very powerful. I was just thinking about the word clairvoyance, and I think I've looked at it, but it just never stuck. It never stuck with me, and it was like I was like trying to figure out what it was, like the vibration, because some people try to they try to blend all this together. I noticed,
Mhm.
and I just never felt like it was like when I felt it in my like it just felt it just didn't feel right. So something so simple but so powerful too, very powerful word. And thank you very much for bringing it.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Can you all give me one moment before we wrap up? And Naki, Moriarty, if you wouldn't mind, can you close out with the Aaronic benediction? One moment, though. Give me one moment, Father John. Right. Toda Rabah for your patience, Mr. John. Moriarty, who are you available to close this out? If not, no worries. Let's go ahead and close this out. Let's get into a spirit of prayer. As a matter of fact, let me do this here. Let me do this here. I'm gonna go to
If you can, all right, can you drop that link that we're going over that was talking about the clairvoyance and all that? I don't remember where it was at, but if you could.
It was in the yeah, I'll bring it up. I'll bring it up.
Thank you.
All right. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong chapter. Here we go. I'll be confusing them. All right. So let's get in the spirit of prayer, and I'll drop it right after we get done with this. So in the spirit of prayer, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Yidabar ya el Moshe li amor, daber el Haron, wa el banav, ve'amor ko, Tid baruchu et bnei Israel, amor lechem, yivarechecha Yahweh yismarecha, ya'er ya panav alecha wa yihunecha, Yisa ya panav alecha wa yisim lecha shalom, Vasamu et shemi el bnei Israel wa ani aberachem. Elohim spoke to Moshe. Speak to Aaron and his sons. Thus shall you bless the people of Israel. Say to them, Yah bless you and protect you. Yah deal kindly and compassionately with you. Yah bestow favor upon you and grant you shalom. Thus they shall link my name with the people of Israel, and I will bless them. Say loud. Let's go back to the Mishneh Torah. So I'll get this to you real quick. Quote. Let me get that up there. But that does officially, I'm sorry, I'm going the wrong direction. Conclude our study for the evening. Let me get you this link. Mishneh Torah. Negative mitzvot. Let's see. Clairvoyance. Clairvoyance. Was that idolatry?
So
Mm-mm. I think that was Black Magic. Was that Black Magic?
Okay, we're
There
talking
it is.
just about that too. Yep.
There it is. How can I copy link? Let's see what this does here. Paste. Let's see what this leads to. So it doesn't come up there. So, trying to think how I can connect this to you. Let's see. Um, let me see. I'll give you this here. Okay, it'll come up in this here. So this is you go here, you go to this link, and then you'll just have to hit the actual commentary. So you go there by clicking on the actual verse. You have to go over, scroll to the right, and you'll go to halakha. So you'll see here, it'll come up. First, it'll come up as resources. So you'll see this here. So you'll have to click halakha, and you'll go to all halakha, and that's where you'll see the clairvoyance.
Okay.
And this is the verse where it comes from here. It comes from this verse 31 of the negative misvote.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I did click. I have the Sephiria app on my phone, so it did open that. So I just needed the halakha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you just go to Mishneh Torah and just go to the negative commandments, verse 31, and that's where it's found right there. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Y'all so powerful. I appreciate you all being here. All love. Thank you for your comments, your insights, your questions, your presence. We will tomorrow be going over Parsha Mishpatim, 1 p.m. We're going to be reading chapter 23, 24, 1 through, what is it? Let me see what we cover tomorrow. I like going to this one, man. It was 24, 1 through, I'm sorry, 21, 1 through 24, 18. Then we'll go over 2 Kings 12, 1 through verse 17. And we'll get into that there. So that is what we're covering tomorrow, as Moshe now goes to explain the right rulings of the Torah. Believe it or not, part of the oral law that he's giving and explaining the Torah to the people. That's what it is. That's what we do. Until then, Shabbat Aref Shalom. Achav Ahad. The Hitra.